All right, welcome to the Shaman Stories Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jeremy Chimbert, and today's guest is Martha Wright. She's a powerful blend of grounded wisdom, deep compassion, and real world spiritual practice. As a medicine woman, she weaves together Celtic spirituality, shamanic healing, somatic awareness, psychology, grief tending, and executive coaching to help people reconnect with themselves and spirit. Thanks for being here today, Martha.
Oh my gosh, Jeremy, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Is there anything in your intro that perhaps I missed that you might want to include, or anything specific you're doing today that you might want to talk about before we dig into your story?
Sure. I mean, not necessarily anything that I'm doing, I think that's all on the website, but just more as a personality, I like to have fun. I like to laugh. I don't take myself too seriously. And my spirit guides have a beautiful, I'm so grateful for this, but they have this beautiful way of communicating with me, which is very sarcastic, which meets my sarcasm. So working with spirit with me is usually a bit of a sarcastic and dry humor situation. So that is something that's not in my bio. That is very much a part of my practice.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I would say I've met quite a few spirit guides, and my own included, where you're just like, okay, I get it. You don't have to talk to me like that.
Yeah. 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 Some of them are
But,
so patient, but some of them are like, you're on my time, you know?
uh, it's like, stop wasting it. Nope. Stop. Especially when it's a spirit guide or a guide in general for a client when I'm working on them in a session. I've had a few show up like almost kind of like smack to the back of the head, like, "No, you idiot, look over here." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, sorry." It's
Yeah.
like, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, okay."
Yeah, right. Right. Can I share a small little
Yeah.
like, a little story? So, when I first so I became a Reiki master in my 20s, and then it wasn't until my early 30s that I started to finally hear the call to shamanism and finally learn how to answer it. And, one of the first journeys I did was like, "Oh boy, I should probably figure out what energy is moving my hands in these Reiki sessions," because, I don't want it to be like crazy Aunt Janet from, like, 5 generations ago who's got a drinking problem, right? Like, we don't need that. So I just wanna make sure I've got my ducks in a row. And so I journeyed in and I asked, this is the intention to learn who the source of Reiki is for me. And I see and I meet with Quan and the Bodhisattva of compassion, and I just totally fangirled. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. You're a big deal. Oh my, no, what? Am I making this up? I must be making this up. She's like, Queen, like, we need you to just get it together. She's like, we've been doing this a long time. This isn't our first life together. Get it together. We have work to do. I don't have time for whatever this is. And I was like, okay. And I like, it's just like so nerded out hard. And then it took me a few sessions, but I finally got back into like a working relationship with her without fangirling.
Yeah, no, it can be interesting. There's been a few that I've met where I'm just like, "Oh, wait, no. Really? This is you? Oh, okay, what am I supposed to just keep doing what you're doing? But you're
Right.
here. You're here now, and now I have to somehow impress you? I don't know what to do here. Like, you're this all-powerful, quote unquote deity, spirit guy. It was Osiris, and I'm just like, what am I supposed to be doing here? And it was like, just keep doing what you're doing. Stop looking at me like that, kind of thing.
I feel like the facepalm emoji was invented because of spirit being like, I just can't. Like, oh boy, I know you've forgotten when you incarnated, but come on now. I need you to move on.
So yeah, we'll definitely dig more into that. But I like to start people off at the beginning, to kind of show people that if they're starting their spiritual journey, they're not going crazy. These things happen. I've been there. You're going to tell us how you've been there. Everybody that comes on has had some interesting story of how they got to where they got. There's very few where it's just like, oh, I was raised this way and this is what I've always been doing. And it's just this perfect alignment of the stars and everything. So I guess, what got you into this? You mentioned doing Reiki in your 20s. What
Mhm.
was your childhood like? Did you have parents who are interested in this, a crazy Aunt Janice, somebody teaching you how to do this stuff, or even doing it around you?
The answer to that is no, I did not. So I was born in Israel, which we then moved. My dad worked for the State Department, so we moved all over the place. So I was conceived of and born in Israel, but we left around 6 or 8 months later. But I think that there's something about the sacredness of that land that feels really important for me, and that's something I've yet to unpack and really work with, but it's something I can feel in the next 10 to 15 years is gonna be something. So, to normalize not having the answers in the moment that we're in and we can feel that it's important, that's also very normal, in this journey is saying, like, "I can feel this calling me, I feel like it's important, but it's okay that it's not right now." Because I think we live in a culture where everything is immediate and faster and bigger and stronger and more of it now. And so it's like, no, 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 it's okay because I know that there's so much more I need to grow in myself before I get to that point. So I trust the journey. Okay. But, we lived in the US, very typical, white Protestant Christian upbringing, very boring, hated church, hated my tights, did not wanna go. Sorry, that was a weird thing to say. I just hated putting on pantyhose. So I just don't know. I don't know why that was relevant, and yet it was. Maybe it was, like, the constricted nature of it, I'm not sure. But and then when I was starting 2nd grade is when we moved back abroad, and I spent the next 8 years living abroad. We spent 2 years in Bangladesh, where I had a very formative experiences with Hindu and Muslim, community and culture. And then we spent 3 and also Buddhist, I should say. I We were in Kathmandu and, one of my favorite stories to kind of again, normalize how weird it can be, we walked into a Buddhist temple, and we were surrounded by all these tourists, and it's like I blinked, and I opened my eyes, and everyone was gone. It was quiet except for the 50 to 70-ish monks who were sitting in lines chanting, candles everywhere, and this giant gilded statue of the Buddha right in front of us. And I just said, "I'm home." And and then I blinked and all of a sudden I heard, "What?" And I look up and there's my mom and she said, "What did you say?" And then there's tourists all around me and I'm kind of getting my bearings a little confused. I said, "I'm home?" She goes, Whatever, Martha, come on." And I was like, "Oh," and I just because I was 7, I walked away just being like, "Well, I guess that's life. I don't know. I think that's normal." And then, we spent a few years in France where I steeped in the beauty of Catholicism, but also I think what was awakening in there was my appreciation of Gaulish, Celtic, and soul wisdom from past lives that I had in that land. Then I spent a couple years in Honduras where, I was a teenager, so everything was stupid and I didn't have time for anything because I was already the smartest, and I also hated my own life because teenagers and hormones and chaos, right? But there was something really special about being there, and whenever I went hiking, we went hiking, I cannot remember the name of the trail that my friend and her father took me on, but it was this beautiful trail and there were giant stones and carvings on them, and then, also going to the Mayan ruins woke something else up inside of me. And again, I didn't know it at the time, I just felt power around me, and I cried to myself, because it's weird that I touch a stone and start crying, right? I'm 15, 14, something like that. So I just, wept internally for something that felt so lost but yet was found. And then just moved on because, I was the wild card kid. I was the imaginative one. I was the one who heard things and saw things that weren't there. And it was just me making it up, right? Because that's not how this works. And so then finally we moved back to the US and Ask Jeeves had come around. The internet had begun to start, and I found myself feeling really like I needed something. I needed it. Like I was lost. I wanted an answer. I couldn't, church wasn't it. And I didn't know what it was. So I went on to Ask Jeeves. And for anyone who's too young to know what that is, it was the predecessor of Google. And you couldn't type in anything like you do with AI or Chat GPT. You would have to do things like in shorthand words. And so I wrote Earth plus spirituality question mark. And it was like, "Congrats, you're a witch." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I got some books from the library and I don't know, I felt like I was wearing someone else's clothing. It just didn't feel right. So I put that all away, and then I experienced some trauma in my later teenage years that was very formative and important for my practice today as, so just to own it, I'm a survivor of sexual assault as well as potential abduction. And in those experiences, it was very much like, hello, you heard your intuition, you felt something was wrong. And I'm not blaming myself. This is not about survivor blame, but it was very much like, hear this. We're screaming at you. Listen, we're here to help you. It was my high self, it was spirit, it was my ancestors. But so I think there was something really special within the wisdom of those experiences. Again, no one deserves that. That was not the grand plan. No one deserves to go through these things. But there's something in the power that we reclaim through soul healing after experiencing it and then going back and healing it. There's a power and a wisdom in there that belongs to your soul. And when we bring it back, it is empowering. It is phenomenal. So anyway, that was really important because that helped to create a strong foundation for my own practice today. So I go into my 20s, I hit my quarter life crisis. Who am I? It's the 2009, uh, you know, boom or not boom, sorry, crash. So I I had a degree in museum studies when I currently am wrapping up a career with museums, but to do my shamanic practice full time. But anyway, I graduated grad school with like no prospects, and I was like, "Who am I? What am I doing?" Well, just all a mess. And my friend's mom did Reiki on me, and it was in that session that I saw with clarity this angry cave woman, and she was in this cave behind metal bars, and she was walking with a stick, just dragging it, gunk, 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 turned around, gunk, 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 and just waiting, seething. And she made eye contact with me. And Jeremy, I could have peed myself. I was freaked out. And at this point, I didn't really have too much experience other than these kind of random things and this feeling of a nagging sensation that I never listened to and stuff like that. So what is this? Because everything was uncertain and everything I'd ever experienced had something scary or uncomfortable around it. So naturally, this is scary and uncomfortable too. And then all of a sudden, it just boom, exploded. And I had this huge emotional release. And afterwards, my friend's mom said she saw a lion jump out of my solar plexus. And I said, "That's funny. I saw a scary cave woman break out of jail." And she was like, "Maybe they're one and the same." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And as it turns out, she was right because really what it wasn't this angry cave woman. She was my wild woman. She was my wildness that had been contained, restrained, and buried from what the dogma of my childhood told me God was and where to find him, and that only through this individual could one see and feel God. And yet, the slow awakening through my travels, through feeling the beauty and the sacredness of trees and rivers and mountains. Oh, God, I love nature. And it's like, but yet I didn't understand why. And so in having her wake up, well, that was like, man, I hit the ground at that point. And so that's when I became a Reiki master teacher. And then around the same time, I was like, okay, I want more, give me more. And so then my friend was like, hey, how about this book group? And I went into this like new age path. And just like it happened with Wicca, I steeped in this group. It was a year-long group-ish, and, it just didn't sit right. There were some cool concepts, some universal wisdoms that I could get down with, but I just kind of felt like maybe it was the community, maybe it was the teachings, maybe it was the structure. It just wasn't for me. So then I walked away from all of that, and I, started to kind of get kind of spooked. I had done all the Doreen Virtue books and the oracle cards, and I had done like the safe, this is love and light, right? Not realizing that there's a whole balance to that I wasn't opening up to. And then finally, I was practicing a modality from the New Age community that I had learned, and it essentially, because we are in a community of kind of people who might understand this, essentially it was past life clearings without the soul retrieval work. I mean, there was soul retrieval built into it, but it honestly felt like getting your soul waxed. Like, I can't explain it other than that. Like, you people would leave the session feeling really jarred, and me too, and I didn't understand it, and now that I've learned how to properly do a soul retrieval, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, like, there's so much love there that needs to happen," and that wasn't about love, that was about, "This is what happened, this is why you did it, this is the karma that was built, now let's clear it." And so, for some sorry, there's a hair on
That's
my
only
neck.
half of the work.
Right, exactly, exactly, and so, I mean, it attracted me, so it attracts people, and I get that, but then I think I walked away being like, "This isn't right," and so I threw it all away because I thought for sure I'm in the wrong thing. So I threw it all away, and I was like, "All right, Jesus, I guess I'm coming back to you because, like, I don't know what else to do," and he was like, "It's all right, like, you've walked away, you'll walk away again. We'll find our way. We're just gonna it's all good. I got you in the meantime." Then I became a mom, and then after a couple years I found myself getting chronically sick. I kept getting tonsillitis and strep throat. And at the same time, I had some very charged codependent relationships that I had been in, friendships that I'd been in for, in some cases a decade plus. And because I didn't believe in myself, because I wanted someone to validate me as beautiful, loving, powerful, good, I would let them toxic dump. I would then get the reward of, "You are so wonderful. I feel so much better. Thank you." And I'd be like, "Uh-huh." And then I'd feel awful. And so at the same time that my throat chakra is getting clogged and swollen and responding through sickness, I am having to admit I can't take on anymore. I can't keep doing this. And so it all kind of came at the same time that I had this massive emotional break. And I told the friendships, I can't be that person for you anymore. And in speaking that truth, the illnesses went away, and I, at the same time, had already and so because of that, I had enrolled in my first shamanic apprenticeship. And so, I found myself hearing the calling quite literally. Like I said, "What is going on? What do I need to do? Please tell me. I can't keep doing this. Keep getting sick." And I heard, "You need to become a shaman." And I looked around the room because surely there was someone who said that. And also, what a weird word to say. What does it even mean? And I Googled it because now Google exists. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I was looking for as a teenager. This is what I was trying to understand in my 20s. This is what I need. My whole body lit up. And I was like, this is absolutely everything. And that's when I, like a true academic, deep dove into every blog post I could read. Who are the teachers? When are they teaching? How do they teach? What program? And then I pulled some oracle cards around which one to work with, and I found my first mentor.
Nice.
Um, yeah. So it can be a twisty road, and it can sometimes be a very painful road, but it is a road nonetheless, and every step forward we take, especially when we trust that intuition and that inner voice or instinct to keep moving forward. Every step we take, we move away from being defined by the past, and we move further into presence and embodiment.
Nice. Yeah, I can relate to quite a bit of that actually. My parents were DoD civilian too, so we went to Germany when I was 13 and same thing of like, "God, why am I here? I don't wanna be here. This sucks." Like, there's pictures of me and my sister standing in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa going, "Whatever." Like,
So
"Don't wanna
real.
be here." L
So
look
boring.
looking back, I'm like, I went back later on in my 18 I went back when I was 18 and was on my own and got to do a bunch of cool stuff after that, and so then I could truly appreciate it, but you never appreciate it as a 15, 14-year-old kid being dragged around with your parents. You don't
It's
care,
so
you just wanna
true.
go
Yeah.
do your own thing,
That's right.
and then what was it? Yeah, and then what you're saying with, going to all these different places, feeling the power, like, there is power in places, there is that energy that's left behind. And you probably had some past lives in that spot too, and it's calling out to you and letting you know, "Hey,
Yeah.
Over here.
Yeah.
Pay attention to this now, getting your energy that way too. So it's then of course you had to mention Ask Jeeves. That just made me feel real old because I remember when that came out as well. So I haven't thought about that one in a long time.
Yeah. It's a banger. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry, please continue.
Oh no, it just and then I was just making notes as you were talking. I don't like interrupting. I like to just bring it all at the end. But yeah, when you're mentioning, the trauma you went through, the way I always look at it is that that's your medicine now. Like if you can overcome that trauma, you grow from it. It becomes your medicine. And if anything else, it helps you connect with people who need you more that are going through that now. So it's always better to find someone you can work with, facilitator wise, even a therapist, if they've actually gone through what you've gone through.
Yeah.
There's more trust and understanding versus someone who's only read about it. And that's the one thing I see a lot is, yeah, the book knowledge is great, having the calling is great,
Mm.
but if you don't work on yourself and work on your own issues, you're not building your medicine kit. You're not bringing in your own power, and you're just regurgitating procedures and not actually connecting properly with people.
Right. That's something I absolutely share with students as well as with clients, which because I understand that I'm not going to be everyone's everything and not, nor should I be, right?
No.
So there will be other healers they work with, other teachers they work with or mentors, whatever. But one thing I always say is, the farther and the deeper we go in ourselves, the more capacity we have to hold someone else in their truth without responding. So we can just witness and then be that conduit, that bridge for spirit to speak through us for what they need. Because we're not the ones with the answers. At least I remind myself I don't have the answers. I've walked a path and I can, to the best of my ability, be that bridge for spirit to speak through me. And then, as human with experience and with having done that work, I can then make sense of that esoteric wisdom in a human and relatable way to that individual. And it's about that partnership. But it's so true. It's so important that we learn what we can from our human teachers and mentors and friends and ourselves, but then also let go of that control and that formula to let spirit guide us through. I mean, it is truly amazing the the way in which spirit can work through us when we are truly in relationship with them
Hmm.
and open to that which they want to bring through.
Yeah, it's being that hollow bone, as we all
Yeah.
have learned. It's just be open, let whatever come through. Try not to be attached to the outcome, and that can be hard when you're working on loved ones, friends, family. Like, I personally try not to work on my wife and kids just
Mhm.
because of that, because I know I'm too attached to the either the outcome or even the, "Oh, did I cause that trauma that they're working through now?" Like, I don't know if I wanna know this. So it's like, I have to separate myself, and I have a couple other practitioners that I we trade basically. It's like,
Yeah.
you take my wife, I take your husband, and we just do like this
Yeah.
round robin. And it just makes
That's
it
good though.
so much easier.
Mm.
And then yeah, because it's the more we clear, I don't even like to say clear, but the more we work on our shadow parts, the more we integrate that part, the more we understand it, that opens up that capacity more.
Yeah.
In my lineage, we work on clearing imprints that are left behind within the energetic field, and we clear out those imprints, and that brings in more energy for ourselves. But I don't even like to say I'm a healer.
Yeah.
We have to use the word healing because that's what people look for, but I'm a remover of things, and then you do the rest. It's like,
Right. Right. I think one of the ways I learned this from a Mayan teacher, one of the ways I love to kind of think of it is like, as a shadow warrior, but also as someone who is like a wayfinder. I'm a wayfinder. I walk alongside, and I'll say this and then I'm gonna explain why it's important. But we walk alongside those who are going into the shadows of their own experience, and we walk next to them and hold their hand, not to show them where to go and how to get there, but to say, "I will be here with you as you remember your power and your direction, your intuition to get you through what you need to experience in order." I mean, of course, yes, spirit is also sometimes like, "Okay, move this over here and bring this over here and tell them to breathe this way as we shake their legs to get this out of the somatic body." Yes, of course, that healing happens. And that is great because then we can help facilitate things and move them through faster or more efficiently, I should say. It's not always about faster. But so, yes, there is that part that I am doing some work with spirit, but it's truly because this individual is open to it.
Yeah.
And the reason I always remind clients that I'm doing what their soul is ready for, I'm doing what they've been praying for or asking for, reflecting on, because one, their permission is paramount. And two, their agency is so important to be remembered because that's part of the healing too, is not only do I agree and consent to this and the amazing things that can come of it, but I get to decide if we continue or stop, or if I
Mhm.
do it this way or that way. Because in a world where we are constantly told how to live, what to think, what to wear, where to be, we are constantly being told and asked to give our power away. And so just the subtleties of, hey, I might ask to touch your leg as I'm moving energy. You're allowed to say no. And in some cases, I've had clients say yes. I'm like, no, you want to say no. And they're like, I do. I didn't want to upset you. I said, upset me, please. Say no. And they're like, no, don't touch my leg. I'm like, great. I'm not going to touch your leg. I don't need to. And they're like, and that was the healing. It had
Mm.
nothing to do with their leg. But then you just feel that, like, I was allowed to say that and I didn't get yelled at or I didn't get hurt or whatever. It's beautiful witnessing people come into more awareness of their agency as part of their healing is just gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell people that too, is like, unless there's a specific reason and you're giving permission, no practitioner of any kind should be putting their hands on you at any
Right,
moment. Like, there's
right.
no reason for it.
Yeah.
Like, everything we do can be done remotely. I don't even take in-person clients anymore just because I find it just easier to keep everything remote. They're more
Mhm.
comfortable.
Yeah,
I'd say 99.9, they're more comfortable in their own house. Sometimes
yeah,
there's situations there, and they can just relax and just get into the work a lot better than I've had people like, "Oh, I wanna be in person." I'm like, "Okay, well, you're about an hour away from me, so if you wanna spend an hour in traffic, show up here for
mhm,
an hour, and then drive back during rush hour, that's up to you." And they're like, "No, no, I'll
right.
do it." Then
Yeah.
afterwards, they're like, "Yeah, I don't wanna do that anymore."
Yeah, because in truth, you're right. What we're doing is soul work. And in that way, souls, just like all energy, is beyond time and place. And so working present or past, individual or collective, land or space, like it's all accessible in the moment. I will say in for my medicine, and so I'm just speaking for me, and I always encourage people to practice discernment and listen to their intuition about who they're working with and whether or not they need to touch. W One of the times in which touch is important in my work is that somatic
Mm,
rewriting of the body's memory. So for those who are survivors of incest and abuse, assault, we start with just energy and we don't do touch, and we build trust. And then after the energetics and the nervous system, especially of the individual, is in a place of trust with me, that's when I say, and I will constantly, for those who are listening, I will constantly reaffirm consent. Can I touch here? This is where I'm asked to touch. Is this okay? I'm moving this way. Is that good? And because it's true. It's not necessary. However, for some people, gentle, because it's very gentle touch. It's not hard. It's very light, very, very light fingertips. Gentle touch can sometimes be the very thing that they hadn't felt before.
mm,
And that can be very healing for someone who's felt aggressive and violent touch. It can be very healing to feel touch that comes from a place of genuine compassion and divine love and presence and respect. Because again, I will always respect that no. But, and so I can't speak for other practitioners, but that's why I reassure people to listen to their discernment and intuition.
Yeah, and I guess I shouldn't say there's never a reason for it, especially when it's the somatic work. It makes sense, right?
Sure.
Because just like massaging and yoga, sometimes you got to help people get into the right pose or the right situation. Energy work in general, though, I would
Right.
always say no. But
Exactly.
if there are cases like what you mentioned, yeah, then yeah, that makes perfect sense. I've done when I was working through my own stuff. I did a workshop where it was like, "Can we hug you?" And I'm like, "I guess." And then I broke down crying after they hugged me because I wasn't
Oh,
used to that. And I'm just like,
yeah.
"Okay, I guess that's what I needed right now." It's like, but that's not something I ever would have thought about either. It was just one of
Yeah.
those, "This feels like we need to do this. Is this okay?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" I'm just like,
Mhm.
"Whatever. This is all weird to begin with anyway." And then I'm, breaking down like a child, and I'm like, "Okay." I guess
Yeah.
that's what I just needed to release it in that moment, and,
Mhm.
looking back, it makes sense. At the time, I'm like, "You're crazy. Whatever. Sure."
Oh, well, I love that. I love it when there can be a reminder that we are all kind of on a path. We're not necessarily on the same path, but I have a mentor, breathwork mentor named Benedict Beaumont, and he calls it the twin trail. And I'm sure he read it from somewhere, so it's not like he made it up. But it's this idea that we're all on a path, just because I'm 30 steps ahead in this one aspect of life or spirituality doesn't mean I'm better. It just means I'm a little bit further so I could reach back and help show the way. Because to your point, like I held a retreat just 2 months ago, and I'm always humbled by the reminders of spirit that, like, no, girl, you don't have all your shit figured out all the time. Okay. Like, remove ego when you're in work. Yes. However, you are still human. So I'm in this retreat and it's going splendid. For the first time ever, I've just, you know, shed control. It's to the wind. I'm letting spirit guide almost every single step of the way. And then would you believe it? One of the participants, this jerk, was like, "Hey, I want to give you a hug." I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And I gave her a hug and she's like, "No, no, no. Let go. Like, let me hug you." And I felt such resistance. So obviously she's not a jerk. She's a wonderful individual. But I was just like, whoa, I'm feeling tremendous resistance right now. She goes, "Ooh, why?" And I said, "Because this is the container that I'm holding. I'm supposed to be in control of this, not in control, but I'm supposed to be the steward or the shepherd or the captain of this container. I can't be soft and vulnerable. I have to get my shit together." And she was like, "Just be soft and vulnerable." And man, I broke down like a little baby and I've just freaking wept. And it was one of the most beautiful lessons in being reminded of the twin trail, which is like sometimes we need to be held too, and sometimes we don't need to be held by someone in the kind of structural normative experience of life where it's like, well, I have to be held by someone older and wiser. It's like, no, not always. Sometimes it could be someone who just has literally gone through their awakening a month ago, and here they are seeing us with their beautiful intuitive eyes saying, "I can do that. I can be the bridge for that. Yeah. Let me be of
Nice.
service right now." It's beautiful.
And then, and following up on that, because I think it's important too. There's a quote that I heard. Was it everyone can be healed, but not everybody is ready.
Mm,
And that's one thing I noticed too with a lot of people going through their journeys. It's like, "Well, this worked for me. I got this fixed, blah, 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 blah. You need to do this now." And it's like, well, they might not be ready to start that part of the process, if at all.
right.
Some people are not ready for it or want it. Good example is a friend of mine. His son owns a bunch of pot shops here in Washington State.
Mhm.
He got off the ground running when they made everything legal. He's a millionaire. Like,
Wow.
dude's got a millionaire life. And my friend who's done ayahuasca ceremonies and everything, he's like, "Hey man, you should do this. This might help you with some of the issues you have with your mom," and da 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 da. And he's like, and the guy knew. He was like, "No, I'm sure it would fix a lot of things, but I have a lot of good things going right now, and I don't want to address the past and screw everything up that I got now."
Sure. Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
"I'm not ready for that yet." He's like, "I'm going to keep doing what's working for me right now, and maybe in the future
Yeah.
I'll address that. And it's like, but he understood it, right? He was just like,
Yeah.
no, no, I'm not changing a thing right now because my life is where it needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah, right, exactly, and I think as well, like, something that we tend to pitfall into, not always intentionally, but it does happen, is feeling like, "Well, this is where most people begin, so I will do this too." So, one of the things I experienced in my past, so I began with Egyptian mysteries and did a couple apprenticeships in there, and then that led me to feeling like, I have all this esoteric information, but I have no grounding. I was like, where do I anchor this? What am I even doing? I don't even know how to talk about it. And that's when I went to core shamanism. And Christina Pratt, who has a podcast called Why Shamanism Now, was one of the most revelatory teachers that she didn't know. I didn't sign up for any of her classes, but I have learned so much from that woman just listening to the podcast. And I read numerous books and listened to and I did online workshops and just steeped myself with as much as I possibly could. And then also listen to spirit, show me, what am I missing? Show me the way. What do I need to learn? Things like that. What do I need to heal in order to see? And so that gave me the foundation in just the basics, but not just the basics of energy and shamanism and relationship reciprocity with spirit and the land, but it also helped me realize what I wasn't facing with the earlier stuff. And so one of the things is that I felt called again to more, something different, but more, something to anchor. And that's when I thought, okay, well, I could go down to the living traditions. I could study in Peru or Ecuador, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala. And it would make sense because I lived in Honduras for a couple years. I had this mind connection. But then something was like, that's not all of it. There's something else." And so I listened, and my dad had just done all this research, through oh my gosh, like, this man poured his retirement into records and going to libraries and places to get the records of our ancestors, and we always knew we were Scots-Irish, or I should say Scottish, who also lived in Ireland before migrating to the US. But now we had it in paper. And so I said, "You know what? Maybe I should go that way." And that's how I got into Celtic spirituality and shamanic practice with Celtic um, framework and daily ritual. And so, not everyone's path is the right thing for everyone else. Some people I started out with only do Egyptian stuff. Some people never continued after the first month. They were like, this isn't me at all. And then there are some people who I've met and who have only ever done psilocybin or ayahuasca ceremonies, but they've never actually done a healing session with an individual. So, you know, to each their own. I can't say whether here or there that that's the right thing for another person because I think it's always so person specific. But anyway, my point in saying that is that it's the path that's right for every individual is theirs and it's theirs to discover. And when we make, I used to call them setbacks, but they're really side steps. When we take a side step and realize how far we've come and where we want to go, that's when we realize, is this working for me? Is this giving me what I need to go there? Huh. Okay, well, let me finish this through, but then try something different. Or actually, yes, it is. Let me continue and not doubt myself. It's all part of the process. It's all part of that rediscovery.
Oh, yeah, and sometimes those pieces you learn that you don't connect with fully in the moment, and you just kinda put them aside, and then you go find something else, and then you might find branches of similarities where it's like, "Oh, well, this works like this. Over here, they did it this way. Let me try to
Hmm.
tweak the 2 together." Now you have something more stronger and more powerful that it's like, "Ah, that's why I needed to learn both." Because
Yeah.
I was the same way. I started with core shamanism, then I did Reiki because I started late. Like, I was in my mid-30s at that point, and so I came into the game late. I never thought I was gonna be doing anything like this. It wasn't on my bingo card. It wasn't my plan. Everything just started going to hell for me, and then it was like
Uh-huh.
shamanism just kept showing up. And I'm like,
Yep.
"Okay, let me go see what this is." And so but I did the same thing. I worked with, Paul Francis over in England, learned from him how to do basic journey work, and
Mhm.
I was like, "There's gotta be something more, something deeper on the energetic side. I need to be able to work on somebody at the same time, not just through journeys." And then I found,
Yeah.
the Quero shaman down in Peru,
Mhm.
learned with them, and then it's like, "Oh, well, these entity things keep coming up. I need to focus on that. Oh, now I found this African shaman from South Africa, taught me this stuff." And I'm like, "All right, let
Mhm.
me take these pieces that make sense." And
Yeah.
I'm working with a guy on quantum alchemy where it's like, "Oh, this is even quicker and faster," but I still like the tradition-based
Yep.
stuff with the Peruvian, so it's like, now I'm just kinda intermixing the 2 together and making my
Mhm.
own modality, basically.
Yeah.
And it just that's my medicine. It's working for me, and other people I know do nothing but sigils or
Right.
Wiccan, that's
Yeah.
fine, or paganism, or
Right.
only do the, journey to, like, the Norse gods instead of anyone
Mhm.
else, those kinda things. It's
Yeah.
do what works for you, and if you find something different, add it on. It's not a big deal.
I think that's quite revolutionary, but it's so true, right? It's revolutionary because we are told everything has its box and its definition. And, and at the same time, we have so much collective pain that has not been processed, as well as pain that's in the land from our ancestors that was not processed. And so appropriation is a word that comes up a lot. And it's absolutely important to check ourselves to say, am I appropriating? Am I doing this with integrity? Have I studied? It's not always about getting permission from a human because sometimes we get permission from spirit and they're like, why are you letting this stop you? What are you doing, human? But it is about being respectful and thorough. And to your point, like when we study, when we show discipleship or rather devotion to spirit and to those ancestral traditions, then it really does. It comes together into this beautiful, like, mixture of your medicine,
Yeah.
something that only Jeremy can offer because of Jeremy's life experience and Jeremy's wisdom experience as well, and his own healing. Just like what I do, is purely through me, and it's different from the way my teacher learned it. And I think you're right. It's revolutionary to say, I don't have to define this. I don't have to be limited to just, I am just this type of shaman. This is my, because it's true, especially in this modern time. Like, let's be real. Okay, sorry, I'm going to go sidebar. When we go back in time, how did core shamanism, how does it make sense to our modern minds? Well, it's because there are these universal wisdoms and practices that these ancient collectives, these indigenous groups knew and practiced as part of their lives.
And never
But
met each
yet
other.
they never met each other. They didn't have telephones, they didn't get on boats and cross the Atlantic. Come on, y'all. How did they know this? Because the land taught them, because spirit that is in the land taught them, spirit that is in the elements taught them, the ancestors taught them, the fire taught them. These things are found everywhere, and it's because there's something bigger, brighter, older, wiser than us that is conspiring with us to bring this all together. And so to sit there and say, well, I only practice this, I would never practice that because I'm white or because I'm Indian or because I'm this. That's just you said it earlier, that's just half of it. That's just half the story. That's closing ourselves off to the beautiful dimensionality. I'm sorry I keep saying beautiful, y'all, but the dimensionality of spirit that, just like Hinduism is a monotheism, and yet there are thousands of expressions of God. It's just why be like, "No, no, 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 just Vishnu." No, it's not. It's all of them. And, I know, I think it's liberating to say, "I'm not gonna stop myself from being the fullness of my dimensionality with spirit," but it is also incredibly important in this modern time to check ourselves and make sure we're doing it with integrity. Because part of what we are getting called to do, whether it's as an individual or with groups that we do it or for the land itself, we are being called to this work now because the land needs to heal. The communities need to heal. This rupture that's happening is a cry for help and healing. And I'm not saying we're a bunch of gurus out here being like, let me throw holy water on you. Like, we're not, but we're listening and we're witnessing and we're holding and we're transmuting and alchemizing. We're all doing what we need to do in our own unique medicinal ways because it needs to heal. And part of that begins with understanding why people are so upset and angry and things like that. So anyway, I think I came back around, but that was a thank you for letting me go off on that one.
No, and I agree, and it's by learning now, obviously, if it's a closed tradition and they don't wanna share it, then yes, that is their choice,
Sure.
and that is
Sure.
perfectly acceptable. I know there's some local tribes in my area where they're like, "Yeah, you can do a sweat lodge, but we're not teaching you anything else."
Totally.
Cool. That makes sense, and it's perfectly acceptable. But at the same token, by allowing others to learn some of your practices and techniques, that also bridges that gap and gets rid of those barriers where now we have better understanding of each other.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, oh, I understand how you live. I understand how you think. I understand what motivates you because I'm learning those skills from you as well.
Right.
And I'm hopefully teaching you some of the better parts of my culture at the same time, right? It's, you know, within my when I did my training with the Quiro, like one of the first questions that came up was, "Well, how can I call myself a shaman?" Because it was this white lady, and she's like, "Because I'm just some white lady from New York." And the Quiro just looked at her, and he's like, "But we're all human. We're all part of this earth." And he's like, "You might be white in this lifetime,
Yeah.
but you probably weren't in other lifetimes."
Right.
And the word shaman is just a name. It's a name that everybody understands. You know, they would actually call themselves curandero down
Mhm.
in Peru, but nobody will understand that. Shamanism just became a blanket umbrella term for everything because of core shamanism. It just
Right.
they took that term shaman from the Siberian tribe, and then it just became this blanketed term for everything.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Just use the word. Like, or if
Yeah.
you don't like the word, use something else, but don't hide what you are because you're white." It just didn't make sense to him. He could not comprehend it.
Right.
And even the shaman I trained with in Africa, he's like, "Well, you're gonna have an easier time with this, making money, blah, 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 because 'cause you're white." I'm like, "You have not looked at America lately." I was like, "If I go around calling myself a shaman in America, I'm gonna get dinged for cultural appropriation." But it's just
Right.
like but I don't know any other word to call it, so I'm just like, "I'm
Yeah.
a shamanic practitioner," because
Yeah.
that is what I am, that is what I do, and a
Yeah.
shaman is someone who mixes different things together in order to work with spirit and gets guided, and she's the mediator between the living and the non-living, and
Exactly.
that's the bridge, and
Exactly.
it's like, that's what I do.
Exactly. And I think I came into the term shamanic medicine woman because I was calling myself shaman and it felt and it's true because it's the practice, right? It's not. And as I've explained to people and I've had people question me and said like, "Hey, you can't do that." I'm like, "Well, let's talk about it." And so I explained exactly what you just said and I said, "Look, you know, to become a shaman, you first learn from your human teachers. Then you learn from spirit and you go through rites of passage and initiations. And then you get into being of service to the community. It is when the community then looks at you and says, "You are shaman." That is when we call ourselves shaman. And that's how at least this is the way I explained it. That's how I came to feel comfortable with saying that was and I was very grateful to hear that from my community members. But I then realized that shaman feels very much like that masculine structure. It is the tradition,
Mm.
the structure of it, whereas medicine woman feels much more that fluid feminine. And so I actually realized in the medicine that I tend to work with the most, which is keening and grief tending and using, sound and somatic movement and breath and guided journey with spirit to connect with these Irish goddesses. um, that's all a part of that, and that is very feminine. So, like, to me, shamanic medicine woman became this beautiful bridge of holding both energies together as one, and so that's how I came to that title for myself, which I feel really good about, and I'm honored and happy to share with people. Whereas before I felt a little sheepish, but now I'm like, "No, no, this is who I am." And it's fine if people wanna question that. I mean, of course, I'm still human, so please be nice about it, but, like, I'm a little sensitive, but, like, I'll totally chat through it with someone. But you know what? Something to you made me think of something when you were saying that there are closed traditions, and absolutely, we respect those, right? We don't wanna, like, read a book about them and be like, "We can do this now," right?
Yeah.
Like, we need to be respectful of them. But it does make me wonder if, like, so much of that closing is because there are those few who come in with great and pure intentions, and then ego doesn't quite dissolve in the greater process of learning and unlearning and remembering and retraining or whatever. And so this idea of, well, let me name this and trademark it and then make it something I can profit off of. I think that's part of the problem. And that's actually maintaining an old regime structure on something that can't be boxed and contained, in my opinion. And so I'm going to say something a little maybe taboo, which is I think Reiki is Reiki, and to have this type of Reiki and that type. Now,
Mm.
granted, have I done my research and have I done these classes? No. So, do you want to listen to me? Maybe not. But this is an opinion I'm going to share. I truly believe that, like, it's all Reiki. It's all the same. It's all sacred, divine love that flows through the individual in that frequency that it is, which is what we get attuned to is that specific frequency, and it comes out. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it mumbo jumbo. It's still Reiki, you know? And so I find myself cautiously, analytical, trying to be open-minded, trying to be compassionate and fair and respectful, but also slightly analytic or discerning when I see people who say, "I teach this, and it's trademarked, and it's this one thing." I'm like, "Okay, well, what are you limiting yourself with?" Like, and that's the first question I tend to go to is, "Okay, you practice this. But what are you not practicing because of it?" I don't know, and again, that may be judgy, and please, for anyone who's like, "I do Kahuna Fire Reiki," I can't remember the full name, how dare you? That is an indigenous and ancestral practice of Reiki, then I am so sorry. Again, did not do the research before I said what I said, but, and I should, I will, I promise, I will, but
And I think it's I look at it, it's the same energy, it's just a different way of tapping into it.
Exactly,
I mean, I
exactly.
used to follow one guy who was like, he was a shaman too, and he was like, "Shamanism is Reiki with rattles." And I was like,
Yes! Yeah.
"Yeah." I mean, to a point, yeah. I mean, besides the journey part, I mean, the energy work is, you're tapping into energy, just a different way of doing it, and you're clearing out things just a different way, but it's all energy work, and it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, I could see it that way too, or this quantum alchemy stuff I've been learning lately, it's like, it's just energy work, but it's just a different way of tapping into the field and working on
Yeah.
someone's energy and clearing things. It's the same stuff. Like, I feel the energy the same way. It's just the outcome is a little bit different with each modality. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, and this will probably offend some people too, because I'm also a Reiki master, but I don't feel Reiki 90% of the time goes deep enough.
I would agree with
I
that.
I
Yeah.
just don't, and I have quantum Reiki, laser Reiki, regular Reiki, fire Reiki. I've done a whole bunch of them, and it works, don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, I've
Oh,
cleared a
yeah.
lot of cool stuff, past life stuff, this life stuff, but I felt the stuff I've learned in shamanism gets down a lot more deeper to the root, and it could just be I didn't have the right teacher, and I'm willing to accept that as well. I'm not trying to say this is 100% be all. This is my opinion from my own experience. And like you mentioned too, there might be some other practitioner who has done some really cool things with Reiki that I've never even imagined. But again, I think it's all the same energy. It's just a different approach to how we tap into it and utilize it.
I agree with you, and that's also been my experience, and again, it's not to say Reiki isn't powerful because it truly is, but I do think it moves at a softer, slower pace, And so we do get the iceberg. The iceberg will break down eventually. It may take 2 years, as opposed to maybe shamanic energy healing and shamanic journey work, which maybe takes 3 months. So again, it depends on the individual and what they're trying to work towards. But I think, you named a couple things here, which I think are very true, which is one is the frequency and the aperture, if you will, the opening of that hollow bone of the teachers we work with will affect and shape how we engage with that healing
Mm.
modality. And I think the Reiki that's taught a lot in the US tends to be very formulaic and doesn't always get taught with intuition. The way I teach it is level 1 is pretty standard. Level 2 is we start to we journey. We journey specifically to working with Quan in the space that she holds. And it's not about journeying elsewhere. This is the one place you journey, but this is how you do it. And so that you can build your relationship with her so that way when you're in session, she is speaking to you as this sacred source of energy, of light and healing. And she guides you. And so it isn't formulaic. It is very intuitive and very spirit driven. So I think for me, Reiki, I lovingly call it the gateway drug of
Yeah,
spirituality.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah,
It it
it's
it's like
great,
getting
but
chickens
it's
on your homestead. It just
yeah.
opens the door to everything else.
It sure does. And so I think Reiki is a solid foundation to start with, for sure. And then you do Reiki and, like, what else are we doing beyond that? Because I think that's and I think perhaps, and I say this with absolute love and respect, maybe the fact that maybe it's not the Reiki, but maybe the practitioner hasn't gone as deep with themselves because maybe they're not ready, like you said earlier, or maybe that's not their path. Because we do need, and there's no shade towards surface level healing because that's still healing. Like it's still important and still necessary. Sometimes we need that surface to begin to get comfortable with diving into the depths. So I think we all have our purpose in place and we're all contributing to that larger story of success, which is let's move towards that healing, that place of alchemizing our pain into power, our woundedness into presence. And let's do it with respect and compassion with each other. So, yeah,
No,
yes.
I'd say that makes sense because it is the gateway. At least, again, it was for me. It was like, oh, I need to learn about this energy work. Oh, there's a Reiki class going on next weekend. I'll go check it out. And, you get initiated, you learn the basics, but you're not doing the deeper work on yourself. You're just getting attuned, right?
Yeah.
And versus my shamanic lineage, it was like months and months of building my mesa, going
Mm.
through the different directions of the medicine wheel, and it was nothing
Mhm.
but clearing and clearing and clearing myself.
I remember my spouse at one point was like, it was this Friday night, and I was like, okay, tomorrow morning, I'm gonna, from like 6:30, I'm gonna try to get up early and I'm gonna do some journey work. And he was like, when are you gonna be done? He's like, when are you gonna be done working on yourself? Quote, quote. He's because like we have family things that we need to do. And I was like, it is for the family. But then, it took a few years, but I got there and now I don't do it as much. So yeah.
When I get and that was one of my next questions too is with your shift towards all of this, how has your family reacted to it? Are they more were they not open? Now they're open? Do they wanna learn, not learn? Like, you mentioned losing some friends when you started taking power back for yourself,
Yeah.
how is it for you, I guess, throughout this journey process?
I had a really two impactful shifts that happened with my spouse. The first one was when I started to do this soul healing through journey work and through shamanic medicine. I was showing up differently. I was still me, but I wasn't as quick to acquiesce. I was asking questions, not acquiescing. And I would say no to things and ask, is it okay if we don't do this as opposed to doing, whatever. So I was showing up differently. And I remember one day my spouse, he and I were sitting outside and we're sitting at a table and he was like, I just don't understand. Like, I feel like you're changing and I feel like you're changing away from me. And I just don't why, like, why are you doing this? Why are you spending so much time doing this stuff? Like, what is it? I could tell he was upset and I could tell he wasn't saying what he really wanted to say. So I took a breath with it and I was like, help me understand this so I can navigate it with true love and compassion and wisdom. And so I did. I said, okay, what I'm hearing you say is that you are feeling left behind because I don't need you anymore. And that's true. I don't need you anymore. And his face fell. I said, I used to need you to pick me up, to be my strength, to be my guidance, to be my protector. I don't need that anymore. I can do that for me now. And he was like, fuck. And I could tell he looked broken. And I said, but I want to be very clear. I choose you. And he looked at me and I said, I choose you. I don't need you. I choose you. And that is a healthier, better place to be. And I hope that you can feel that. And we both started crying, it was beautiful. And so that made us stronger. But then unfortunately for him, because I had done all this work in myself, the energy shifts, right? And then he accepted those changes and was like, I will love her as she is changing and growing and becoming more embodied, which then, of course, you know where this is going, which meant he had to go through his awakening process. And he is not a deeply spiritual person. Like he believes there's something out there. He doesn't want to give it a name. He doesn't want to give it a dogma or a faith. But he does realize that he hit a point where he broke and he had panic attacks and he was facing things that he didn't understand what they were. And it was through working with him and showing up with him alongside of him and also helping him find a somatic practitioner and a myofascial release energy and therapy. And, it was through this kind of tandem approach that he was able to work through it and come to the other side of it. And now before he didn't understand what I do. And now he says, I don't know what to call it, but I know it's real. I know it's intense and powerful, and I am madly in love with you for it. And so that in itself, that presence of commitment and appreciation is huge. I mean, I am grateful for it, but that energy that he embodies is so steadfast that those around us don't question it. They're like, "Oh, okay. Well, Martha's a little woo-woo." And I'm like, "Okay, thanks. I'm not Gwyneth Paltrow, but sure, whatever." Or like, "Oh, Martha's into the weird witchy stuff." And he's like, "That's not what it is." And he tries to correct people. And again, nothing against the witch community. It's just that's not my practice. It's like, it's like wearing a pair of Adidas and saying cute heels. It's like, what? That's not what that is. So anyway, so I think that was amazing. And then also seeing my sister going through her own awakening and the work that I did that was ancestral. I can see she's working through her own stuff, but of course I can't say it's all because of me, though as a Leo I would be like, oh, it's because of me. But I think she's going through her stuff and she's maybe finding it a little bit more of a smoother ride because of the ancestral work I've done. And I've noticed that my dad has shifted a little bit. So of course they don't know anything that I did, but I can see a little bit of a shift there. And then I also would see more resistance from other family members because they don't understand it. They're afraid of it and they're afraid of change. So were more kind of judgy is probably the right word, more openly judgmental of me in front of other family members. But you know what? That's okay. It was not kind and I did not appreciate it, but I was not rude about it. And I understood that it was just from a place of fear.
No, that makes sense, and that's pretty common, I would say, and you're luckily, you know, your husband at least was like, "Oh, let me go ahead and give this a shot, see what happens."
Yeah.
Some people don't get that, and that is one of the harder things with the healing journey is a lot of times I see that where it's like, "Why did all this work? Why aren't they accepting it? Why aren't they changing to? Why won't they listen to me? Blah, 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 blah." And
Right.
it's like, well, again, like we mentioned, they might not be ready. And two, they might not believe that you're truly changing just yet because maybe you've been down this path multiple times.
Sure.
Maybe it's drug addiction or alcoholism or any number
Yeah.
insert here. And you've
Right.
tried to break the pattern and you couldn't. And this time it's actually sticking, but they just don't believe you yet because they've had too much trauma built around that before. And so yeah. And sometimes you just got to, as hard as it is, let people go. Hope
Yeah.
they come back, You can't force it down people. My
Mhm.
parents, my dad was not interested in any of it, and then my mom wasn't either, and then eventually she came around to it, was like, "Oh, can you show me some of this stuff? What does this mean? What exactly are you doing?" They could
Yeah.
see the change within me and go, "Oh, maybe there is something here."
Yeah.
And then it's dogmas, right? Everybody, certain religions, they'll fight
Yeah.
against it, and even though this will enhance your religion in so many ways you can't even imagine,
Oh,
it
it's true.
it goes against the religion because it's in a book that says this is bad. But I know I
You know
know Catholic priests who have been through shamanic initiations.
yeah. No, it's true, because when you can see God in everything and then you still choose that faith rather than saying, "Well, this one faith isn't whatever, it's I'm gonna go with all of them or none of them." When you come back and say, "I choose you," like I did with my husband, like, that's empowering. It's a pretty special commitment that one makes in doing that. Um, and something else I thought of is when you were talking about, the unfortunate truth is we are typically a monogamous species. I know that there are people who will disagree with that, but typically, I say typically, a monogamous species. And so, we feel like we want to find our partnership, we want to find our belonging, our safe place, and then we want to just be there. And as we're changing, not everyone will change with us. And to your point, maybe they're not ready. Maybe that's not their path. And so, if we think about it this way, if we are embodying through the healing process, embodying more of our light, you know, do we want we we sometimes need something that can hold us in our bigger light in the way that honors that version of us.
Yep.
So if the person we're with, it is still a death process, it is still an ending, it is still painful and hard and full of grief, but it's important sometimes to let those things go if it means coming into a relationship with someone who can honor and match that frequency, that light, that joy, curiosity. And also, I would encourage an individual who maybe is already struggling with this to ask themselves the questions: do you expect your partner to change because you feel like you need that? Because maybe there's a healing in there. Like I said, I am a shamanic medicine woman. My husband is Gnostic, so he believes there's something out there. He doesn't want to name it. He doesn't really care to talk about it. He doesn't pray. Like he is a double earth and he is a corporate kind of work, like 9 to 5 suit wearing dude. And he is stubborn and I love him. I don't need him to be like me in order to be who I am. So I would encourage those who are dealing with this kind of similar situation, first, before you make a decision, ask the question, do I need this for me and why? Because maybe there's a healing in there. And then you realize, oh, I never actually needed them to change. I just needed to be comfortable with them not changing.
Or them being comfortable with me changing,
Right. And they
because
themselves not changing
yeah,
as well. Like, yeah, it's
exactly.
100%. It's tricky.
Yeah, it can be rough, and it just goes into everybody has their own path. I mean, I just had a client reach out to me the other day going, "Hey, can you work on my daughter?" And she said it later that the communication probably got, mistranslated because it was through text, but it was like, "My daughter needs help," and then it was about her husband not leaving her, and I was like, "I can't stop that." I was
Yeah.
like, and I've had that with other clients too, like, "Well, I don't wanna get divorced. I don't want my wife to leave me." I'm like, "I might not be able to help you with that, man. Like, I we can
Yeah.
work on you, and if that ends up being the you that your spouse is happy with,
Yeah.
maybe you guys can work it out." But
Yeah.
at the same token, like, how much do you really need to change to keep somebody in your life?
Right.
It's like,
Right.
why are
Exactly.
you the one changing to fit someone else's mold? You need to
Exactly.
work on your own healing for yourself and allow the people that need to resonate with you come into your field. It's
Definitely.
this same thing with the airplane, put the mask on yourself
Yep.
first, then help everybody else. If you're not working on yourself and you're only focused on everybody else, you probably got something you need to look at. Like, that's just the
Yeah.
way it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the airplane rules.
It just ties, and then, like my tradition says, If you work on yourself, you're healing 7 generations behind, 7
Yeah.
generations ahead. Indirectly, directly, you might not know it, but just working on your own baggage, your own trauma, you're stopping that from moving forward to your kids, your grandkids, etc. So you're already doing a service just that alone. You don't have to take your gifts and skills and go out and heal the world. Just healing your own family line can be enough.
Right. Right. That I mean, that and exactly, that is impactful as well. Like, that is so impactful, and that's what I love about, like, living shamanically as a term, as opposed to because being a shaman means that you have a life calling to be of service. People say it's in service. No, we're not indentured servitude. Like, it's not, it's to be of service. I'm available if someone is looking for my medicine. I'm not here to give my medicine away
Yeah.
and expect people to want it. But not everyone has that calling, but that doesn't mean they can't live shamanically. So living with the wheel of the year, living with relationship to the elements and to whatever expression of nature is outside of their home, and taking those journey practices, those ritual practices, and doing the cleanup for themselves, for their descendants and their ancestors. I think it's one of the more well, I know I've said rebellious, but in a sense, it's kind of rebellious, Like, it's like, yeah, I'm going to do what's right for me and my lineage and my ancestors and the land that I get to live on, n- even though I don't make any money from it. But I'm going to do it because it's good and right, and my soul feels nourished by it.
Uh,
Hell yeah, that's awesome. It's badass.
yeah, and doing this work doesn't mean you have to quit your 9 to 5 job making millions of dollars at a corporate setting. You can still do all of that. Like,
Mhm.
again, we're here to live. You
Yeah.
can, if you really want to, you can have the nice car, you can have the big house, you can do all of these things and not,
Mhm.
but still live a shamanic life because maybe now you take that extra money instead of putting it in the bank. Maybe you pay to get some trees planted or you pay to take
Right.
care of something. Like you can do something more with it than not having to work on clients daily because that's just not your thing. That's okay.
Right.
Like,
It's
it
all
doesn't
about
have to be.
intention. Yeah.
And with that, before we wrap up, do you have any like last? I mean, this whole episode's pretty much been advice for people, but any like parting advice?
Hmm. Let me not think. Let me listen. Okay. To trust your journey, even if it doesn't always look the way others have looked. And I know we talked about that. Even if it's not what you think it was supposed to look like or feel like, trust your journey for you. And as a gentle reminder, everything is, at least in the Celtic understanding, is a spiral. So we see things as a triple spiral, which means, or as a general spiral as well. But if you spiral, what we mean by that is as we're walking the path, there's no arrival. There's no perfect point of completion and now I'm this because of this. Well, you might have that along the way, but that one ending just means it's the beginning of something else. And so the reason I say this is because as you quote, heal the thing, you may find that in 6 months or even a year's time, you've now reached the part of the spiral that's directly underneath that original wound that you worked on a year ago. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean it wasn't working or something went wrong. It doesn't mean that it's back. It just means that you're at a deeper level with the working towards that core wound than you were the time before. And you'll go again around you'll heal that thing and alchemize it, move through it. And then you'll curve around again and reach it again, but at a deeper level. And then again, at a deeper level until you come to the very core truth of it. And as you work through it, that's when it doesn't just go away, but it turns around. And what was once the bottom of a spiral is now the beginning of a next. And so it is both so liberating and wonderful and also like, "Man, like, don't do that. Don't do that to me, Martha. Tell me it's over and now I get to go to the beach and have a margarita." But in
Yeah.
truth, it's a spiral.
No, and that's true. It's the medicine wheel. You're going
Mhm.
through all the archetypes, you're running through it again and again and again. And sometimes you're hitting on the same themes, sometimes it's slightly tweaked themes, sometimes it's a
Yeah.
whole new thing. You're just like, oh. But it's just one of those things where it's just when it comes up, recognizing it, working through it, integrating it, not hiding from it. Like you mentioned earlier, like, oh, it's not just love and light. It's not. And I had a guest on who she said it perfectly. She called it bliss trapped. And I was like,
I like
yes,
that.
because it was you're trapped in this idea that it can only be love and light. And if you
Mm.
love and light, everything's going to be perfect. Well, it's not because it hides you from the reality of what's really going on. And bliss trap for me was like just the perfect term. I was like, that's it. That's exactly what I've been trying to say for years.
And and if I may, like, what I do, my medicine work, working with the Marigan, with Bive and Macha, this triple goddess of death and destruction and war and prophecy, from the Irish, pantheon, working with the Marigan, like, she is chaos. She is, quote, "dark," and but I have also learned from her that she is so much love, and she is so much wisdom and power in a good sovereign way. And so just because it's dark doesn't mean it's bad. Not all chaos comes to destroy. Sometimes chaos just comes to cleanse. And not in, I shouldn't say cleanse. That sounds kind of yeah, Nazi-ish.
Biblical.
But it can come to, like, shake things up and help us to see where the dust is to get it out. And so I don't see myself as anything dark or light or this. I just see myself as that balance point because I am an agent of, if you will, the Marigan, or I am a practitioner of the Marigan, but in service to the good and the wise and the strong that lives in all of us, and many of us call it the light. So, it's not all it's none of it's great, and so you know what? And to that point, when we are in the bliss trap, that's actually not good. And so, like, you can have ugly in the light just as you can have beauty in the dark.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about the balance.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who think that they're in the light and are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and
Yeah.
vice versa. Some people who are considered to be in the dark, but they're actually helping everybody and doing the really nice things. It's a lot of it's perception, but it's also that we need that balance. You're supposed to find the balance within yourselves and within everything around you. And it's just like anger. It's like anger, yeah, that's an ugly emotion, but it can be helpful when you need it.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make it bad. It's
Yeah.
how are you using it? It's a tool, just like everything else.
Yeah.
So or even voodoo and hoodoo, like everyone instantly thinks that's evil, but voodoo was actually used for healing.
Yeah.
It just only became this evil thing because of the perception through TV and stuff. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying they probably haven't used it for bad, but we can do the same thing with energy work. We could hurt somebody if we're not,
Mhm.
appropriately taking care of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
great. Well, I really appreciate your time. This was fun.
Yeah, I feel like I could talk for hours with you.
Yeah.
I'm just so tickled to be, in space with you sharing all this and being like, "Yes, yes, yes."
It's nice when it's like, "Oh, this is a modality I actually know something about. Okay, I can talk
Yeah,
about this one."
yeah,
Some people come on and I'm like, "I know nothing of this, so I'm just here to learn." Other times it's
yeah.
like, "Sweet, I can contribute."
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fun. Thank you, Jeremy.
Alright, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if something our guests shared resonated with you, connect out to them. That's what these stories are here for. And if you're looking for deeper healing or support, you can always find me at pnwshamanichealing.com. See you in the next episode.